I don't know, I'd say. I'm a Cooper. That is how I viewed myself, and still do. I looked to my father's large family with its deep roots in the Mississippi earth, and I've taken their American story as my own. But my mom's death in 2019 and the birth of my son Wyatt in 2020 began to change my perspective. In the weeks after she died, I began going through dozens of boxes stored away in her apartment and her art studio. They were filled with journals and documents and letters. She saved everything. Handwritten notes from her Aunt Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney and school books my grandfather Reginald Vanderbilt doodled in as a child. I found old wills and financial records, and as I read the contents of these files stained by time and mold, I began to hear the voices of those people I never knew. They were more than just characters in a history book, more than just one-dimensional members of an American dynasty. They were complex, flush with desire, their inner lives far more compelling than their public personae would have us believe. When my son was born, I began to wonder, what will I tell him about them? What do I hope he learns from the lives they led and the choices they made? In order to answer those questions, I began researching these people I had avoided for so long, this family, my family. The Vanderbilt story somehow manages to be both unique and also deeply, universally American. It's a saga of wealth and success and individualism, but as it turns out, those aren't necessarily the universal goods our culture likes to believe they are. A few central myths appear again and again in Americans' popular imagination, that success is available to anyone who's willing to work hard, for example, and that success is worthier of celebration if it's achieved alone, without help, as if any success were truly achieved solely alone. Even the self-made Commodore got a crucial early loan from his mother when he was 16. We still catch ourselves subscribing to this Horatio Alger-esque celebration of entrepreneurship, of individualism, and by extension of wealth. We somehow simultaneously believe that we are all the same, all created equal, and yet we secretly suspect that the rich are somehow more special, that they have something figured out that the rest of us don't know. We see this embedded assumption play out every day in our modern celebrity culture and in our politics. In writing this book, my co-author Katherine Howe and I wanted to explore how some of the Vanderbilts, individual people with personalities and weaknesses and foibles who found themselves living the ultimate American myth, actually felt as their lives were unfolding. The personal stories we recount focus on a few individuals rather than on the grand sweep of the Vanderbilt's business empire or the expansion of railroads into the wilderness. Commodore Cornelius Vanderbilt founded a dynasty that would rule the Gilded Age, and his rise was dizzying. He possessed a genius and a mania for making money, but his obsession with material wealth would border on the pathological. The pathology born of that wealth would go on to infect each successive generation in different ways. A family story about wealth and individualism and triumph becomes, in some respects, a story about sadness and isolation. But it's also a story of unexpected poignancy and truth that shifts our understanding and expectations about this name, Vanderbilt, that we imagine we already know. The Vanderbilts were the original new money arrivés, who burst on the scene, used their wealth to buy prestige and respectability, and churned through their fortune not in the cause of making lasting change, but on massive outlets for conspicuous consumption. Vanderbilt millions bought palatial houses, astonishing yachts, cars in the hundreds, and jewels both magnificent and rare. But under the buckets of ink spilled on their exploits by newspapers, and behind the magnificent and temporary marble walls constructed of the Commodore's money, unfolded private lives both messy and insecure, nuanced and complicated, sometimes irredeemable but always fascinating. This is the story of the extraordinary rise and epic fall of the Vanderbilt dynasty. This is the story of the greatest American fortune ever squandered. Prologue. The Breakers. March 30th, 2018. Whether a servant or the host or some other member of the family sees a guest to the door is never closed until the guest is actually underway by foot or by car. Amy Vanderbilt's complete